Hi everyone, my name is Alex and I'm the Vice President of the ACM Los Rios chapter, and I'm going to pass it over to my friend here, Peter. Peter, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Peter Velasquez, and I'm currently the Vice President of the Sacramento State ACM chapter and previous President of the Los Rios ACM chapter, and a current intern at Intel as a Sales Operations Analyst.
So that's great. You heard how Peter was previously the president of our ACM chapter. Um, we want to know how your experience at Los Rios gave you more insight going from your transition from a Los Rios community college student to an intern at Intel. So just let us know like your stories, what you went through, and what really got you going when times were rough.
Yeah, absolutely. At first, I just want to start off saying thank you, Alex, for reaching out. I think this is a great opportunity to kind of connect and reconnect, I guess I would say. And, for me, my Los Rios journey was one of a return, if you will. I was a previous student who studied sociology and was returning back to pursue a degree in computer science. And some of my experiences are going to be a little unique as I was a returning student, but there's a lot of value in the journey, right? So as I started my second journey through junior college, I was working full time as a restaurant manager. I was taking, full time classes as well. As I got through my computer science track, and about a year in, I started to realize that I was going to have to transfer. And once I went to see what I needed to do, the calc series and linear algebra was thrown on the table. Little did I know that it needed to be consecutively done. So unfortunately for me, being a returning student and seeing a 2-year time frame for just doing math work was going to be not suitable for my immediate needs. And so finding out that, how can I transfer sooner while still maintaining, some of this computer science background. And that's when I was pointed in the direction of MIS, which is Management Information Systems, the intersection between computer science and business. And so that was my journey through the academic side. But with returning to school, I realized that the first time I went to school, I didn't do any extracurricular activities. I wasn't a part of clubs. I didn't do volunteer work, and I didn't understand the importance of all of that. I made it a point to get involved this time as I returned to school. And my first experience was through a ACM meeting where they brought in an Intel employee and also a Los Rios professor, a Sac City professor named Samir Batarse. And he came and he talked about what it was like to be an intern at Intel. And I remember leaving that session in awe and thinking, wow, how cool would it be to be an intern at Intel, and thinking like, wow, how far off I am from being an intern at Intel. And all the things that he said, they did and what was needed. And everyone was like, well, how do we get the internship? Like, how do we apply? What skills do we need? What do we need to do? And looking back, it was I can see that it was a little overwhelming for Samir and being like, okay, hey, there's a lot. You guys are quite a bit of ways, but here's a couple things to concentrate on moving forward. And so that's kind of where that started. This aspiration to be at Intel one day started at that first session, and it actually led to the building blocks to actually getting me there. So after that meeting, I felt that the ACM was going to be an extremely valuable opportunity for me. It was very new. It was their first ever first ever semester getting started. Emily Baker was the president then, and I waited after that session to talk to Emily, and I said, hey, when's the next event? How do you get involved? And that kicked off my ACM journey where I got involved. I wasn't an officer my first semester because I was working full time. I was going to school full time, and I didn't want to commit to something else without being able to fully commit. But I helped out. I helped out that first semester. I built a rapport with the officers, And leading into the second semester, I would put it on the table, said I'm willing to be an officer. And it wasn't that I asked, I was kind of appointed to be president. It was kind of the officers were like, hey, I think you should be president. And so I just took that on. And that semester was where the opportunities started coming, and it really came through the facilitation of the club, right? So we hosted multiple events. I hosted a get to know the ACM events, just inviting students and faculty from across the campus. We had a session. We had some guest speakers of what was to come in the semester. We had some pizza and things like that, and I kind of kickstarted the ACM chapter that semester. Eventually, that led to a pretty big event. We did a Master the Mainframe Challenge for IBM. I think it was the first Master the Mainframe Challenge at Sac City or for Los Rios. We had almost close to 200 students in attendance from across the district. We had over 30 industry professionals. Some had traveled in from Chicago. We had there was a lot on the line there, and it was a pretty successful event. A lot of coordination, and through that event, I was able to meet Dr. Harsh Verma, who's the president of the professional ACM chapter, and he was pretty surprised, I think, and then also happy about the success of the event. And he had reached out to me and offered me an internship at his company at the time as an IoT intern. And for me, I had no idea what IoT was. I had no idea, what he did. I just knew that he was a vice president of an organization. So I saw it as being a great opportunity, and I had actually made the commitment to leave my full-time job to become an intern. And so that was a big sacrifice and a big decision, and kind of a pivotal moment for me as I made a transition and commitment to start from the bottom in a field where I felt I was going to be committed to for the rest of my life. So having to make that decision was pretty difficult, not only financially, but it's a huge commitment to put yourself in a position that you have no idea what you're doing, but understanding that you're going to figure it out, right? So I became an IoT intern at R Systems, working directly and reporting directly to Harsh Verma at R Systems. At the time, he was the vice president of global innovation. There were a lot of things going on. It was my first real experience at quote unquote tech corporate America. So that came with some learning curves. But in that internship, I learned so much about technology, about IoT, about presenting, developing projects, being a project manager, and sales. And so that internship lasted 4 months, and it turned into a full-time offer as a business analyst for our systems in the Future Technology Center there under Harsh Verma. So as that transition happened, I transferred to Sac State as an MIS major. When I got to Sac State after my first semester, I realized that making databases was not my my forte. That kind of wasn't what I wanted to be doing. I'd much rather extract the data from the database and use that knowledge for making decisions and providing insight. So I strongly believe that everything happens for a reason. You're always at the right place at the right time. And at that time, Sac State just started their business analytics program within their business department. And I was 100% on board. I switched my major and I committed to business analytics. And I thought it'd be extremely helpful for my path and journey down not only my business analyst roles and progressing through that, but also providing me a stronger data background as well as a stronger foundation in presentation and business communication and ultimately sales. So at our systems, I was there. Unfortunately, my time there was cut short due to COVID. So I was laid off, which is, again, another hurdle, right, in the journey. And I made a commitment then to concentrate solely on school and continue to volunteer. I got more involved with the ACM professional chapter as now I'm a marketing chair for them as well. And then I committed to the ACM Sacramento State chapter. I committed to multiple projects on the side with Dr. Verma as well. So volunteer experience. And things started leading and building on top of each other. Being able to be exposed to industry professionals through the ACM was incredibly important. The networking aspect of that was important. Being able to meet and hear of other opportunities, and being able to help out with the Future World Symposium and working with professionals in different aspects and seeing and being able to expose myself and my work ethic and abilities really kind of helped me as I started getting job offers and I started getting, hey, here's this job opportunity. And so most of which I turned most of them down because, as I said, I was committed on graduating early. I was committed to just do school while COVID was starting, staying, working from home, volunteering, doing school. And all of a sudden, I got an email from Los Rios, and it was an Intel info session about an internship with SMG within BMG org. And so I went, and just like all the other kind of events like this, I was going to all of them and kind of trying to expose myself to get an internship because I knew how important it would be as I would to graduate. So this is my, my junior year. And I go to the info session, even though I'm a Sac State student, I go to the Los Rios info session, and I don't get the invite if I'm not a part of the ACM. So I think it was I got it as kind of still being part of an email thread as being the ACM president at Los Rios. I show up to the info session. They had an employee there that had a degree in art history and was working at Intel in this role, had the internship in this role, became a full-time employee, and was now the CBA for Apple. And I was like, it gave me just a boost of confidence and being like, wow, you don't have to be a computer science major to work at Intel. And you don't have to be technical to work at Intel. And I was like, how is what is it? What is it? Like, how are you an art major and, you're working at Intel? And what it came down to find out was that it's not the position itself wasn't as technical as other positions. And what I came to find out later is that Intel has thousands of jobs that aren't technical. And so moving forward, I followed up to that event. They offered a one-on-one session. And that one-on-one session, they said, if you make a good impression, then you get a phone interview. And there wasn't a guarantee, it was just that. And the session was 5 minutes. So I attended the session. I was asked one question. And then my answer was done. And then the interviewer said, okay, thank you. And I was like, oh no, like I thought I ruined it. I was like, I talked too much. I rambled. He only asked me one question.
Do you still remember the question?
Yeah. So he said, why do you want to work at Intel? And I rambled on for 5 minutes. So I thought I blew it, right? I didn't hear back for months. I continued to look for other internships, continued to apply. And then I think it was about 3 months later, I got an email saying, we'd love to set up a phone interview with you. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, wait, what? I hadn't heard in so long. I thought I ruined it. I was like, oh, that was my chance. And so I went to the phone interview. I did the phone interview. And then within a week, I got another email saying we'd like to advance you to a panel interview. I did a 1 hour panel interview with 2 managers. And then a couple of days after that, I was given the internship offer. And so, to kind of turn the story full circle, it was the semester that I got the offer. I was in a supply chain class, um, and Samir Batarse was a guest speaker. And mind you, this is 3 years after I had originally met him and heard him at the ACM, my first ACM event. And he comes in and he's no longer at Intel. He's working, he's a director for the state, and he's talking about Intel still, but he's talking about their supply chain, and giving us knowledge about how big supply chain is, what's important to think about when you're making these decisions, and how one decision can have a huge impact on so many other things. Uh, so at the end of the session, I unmuted myself and I I just said thanks, and I kind of told him, I was like, I don't think you remember me, but 3 years ago, you gave a talk at Sac City about Intel internships, and I felt extremely inspired to one day be an Intel intern. And 3 years later, here you are in a different class. I'm at a different university, and I just want to say thanks because I finally got that internship at Intel. And he said, wow, congratulations. And I'm like, and it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for him, right? If I wasn't exposed to it, if I wasn't inspired to do it from him, I don't join the ACM. I don't do the IBM Mainframe Challenge. I don't get the internship at R Systems. I don't get the full-time offer at R Systems. I don't switch over to MIS and then business analytics. I don't go to the info session at Los Rios. And then ultimately I don't get the internship. So I think the long story, right? The ending kind of thing is put yourself out there. You have to. The networking is important. Being able to join clubs and be active, getting that experience. Not being afraid or kind of quitting on something, right? Even though it sounds non-attainable now, you're just beginning or something. I don't know half the things this guy's saying technically. You will get there eventually. And Intel's a great company to work for. I've been very inspired since working at Intel in how the culture is amazing. Kind of thinking about the print of Intel has on the world, thinking about being a part of this huge ecosystem, right? But also this huge workforce. There's so many people working for Intel. It's incredible, and the bandwidth that they have. But it doesn't. It's not unattainable, especially coming from junior college. And I think I've had conversations with management and talking about how junior colleges have so much talent and it goes unrecognized. And they agree, right? So Intel is very good at that, and they understand that there's a lot of hidden gems in junior college, and we are trying to find them. Unlike other companies who may not be willing to, we are trying to find them, and I think that should give a lot of hope and enthusiasm to you guys, and understanding that just because you go to junior college, just because you go to a state school, doesn't mean that you don't belong at a company like Intel. And so continue on your journey and continue to hone in on your talents and what you're trying to do, and I think that you'll have a good opportunity, and also reach out, right? The networking part. I am 100% somebody that will be a resource and willing resource for anybody in the ACM moving forward, looking to make their way into Intel.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter. If you don't have to go yet, I have a few responses to what you said. I definitely
Yeah,
agree.
absolutely.
Because I was in my 400 class, and then at the end of the semester, we got an opportunity to hear from Professor Bartasai too. So I got him. He got up on this huge stage in the middle of college, and he gave this speech about how he used to go to the bus stop every single day to go to school, and how he would cry and not have enough money, and one day things started looking better for him. He joined clubs, like you said, like the ACM. He really put himself out there, and like really hearing like each individual step from how he went from junior college to being at Intel really motivated me because he was like professional speaker who had shown like pictures of him and his family traveling all over the world, managing like supply chains and going to factory sites like you said, but really coming down to a deep humble level to speak to students just like me about his experience. And I think that really speaks volumes to what you said and connects and ties everything to a nice point, is that put yourself out there, really strive and persevere and don't give up. And I think that is wonderful, especially for our exam season. So yeah, you've heard from Peter about his experience. Peter, is lovely to have you here. I hope you stay tuned for our hackathon in spring. Peter, is there any last parting words you want to give our audience?
No, I think basically it's just continue on with your studies, stay focused, and try to get yourself involved as much as possible. If it's not in clubs, then personal projects or project teams. When you get to the interview portion of internships, the internship is extremely valuable in getting a full-time role. It really comes down to your experience. What you can show that and what you've done to show that is really valuable. So the degree itself is not really enough. It needs to be the extracurriculars, the projects, the learnings, and being able
I like
to,
what you said about
to
the art history major getting a job in Intel because it shows that even though they're an art history major, it really takes a certain kind of acumen, like a skill set that you really apply yourself regardless of where you come from or your degree to really benefit the company and know how to manage and navigate that route. So yeah, like personal projects showing what you know and really putting yourself out there really builds on all that acumen of experience and really helps you bridge that gap between where you are and where you want to be, like Intel, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that, to touch on that point, is what we call the soft skills is really important. So it's one thing to be extremely technically talented, but if you're not able to present that value or level it down so that everyone understands the value, then it's kind of useless.
Yeah, I agree.
Not completely, but you have to be able to communicate well, be able to work in teams, and be able to be results driven.
I
Coming up with
I
a
heard
solution in a
about
timely
him.
manner is important.
I heard Professor Sam Bartarse mention soft skills too in a presentation, and he called them power skills. So what you said,
Yeah,
like effective communication, making sure everyone on your team understands the information that's success driven. I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And kind of don't lose that, right? Don't get too caught up in having to know the newest technologies, or doing make sure that you're also working and treating other courses like communication courses, business communication, those other things, that presentation skills, um, being able to tell a story, being able to hold a conversation, being able to show and extract value, and how you kind of promote that is important as well. So um, I that's just a really big key, because the technical component is just a part of that. And nowadays, as they say in industry, is that it's a lot harder to teach what Samir says, power skills, than it is to teach the technical skills. So sometimes they'll err on the side of the power skills over the technical skills, but that's not for everything, right? Like, I'm not that's probably, if you clip that out,
For
that wouldn't
me,
be a good
for
soundbite, but you know what I'm saying, right?
yeah.
It's extremely important in being able to do that. So um, just a recommendation there. But yeah, keep up the good work and the hard work, and please feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions.
Yeah, his
Um,
LinkedIn is in the video description. So if you want to network with Peter, he's like he said, he's an open and willing resource to guide and mentor you. So feel free to do that. Any last words, Peter? No?
no, that is
Okay.
it. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Bye. Hi, we have a special treat. So Peter's gonna stay with us for a little bit longer. Yeah, so we started talking about how off camera how the ACM was turned to this professional guild kind of association thing where we have alumni who've now become professionals in the tech industry giving back to our chapter here at Los Rios. And I think it's really awesome that Peter's talking about how alumni can really connect and grow and foster the professional development of our students, even at a junior college level. So, Peter, what are your insights on that?
Yeah, so as we were discussing, I think that was kind of the initial grasp of when I was president of the Los Rios chapter, was really trying to set the foundation. I was the second president, and I wanted to be able to allow for this foundation to be set for others to come and see what had already been done and really push them to build on top of that. Right. That's why it was critical for us to start the website. It was critical for that Master the Mainframe event to be at a higher level, and kind of pushed more towards getting this district-wide approach into that event, and really hoping that students in the future would really build on top of that, which it seems like it really has. And as you mentioned, and if you want to share your experience with that Master the Mainframe
Yeah.
challenge.
So I actually went to that challenge the same day. I remember SSHing into my Telnet client and then taking a picture with all the officers that day and all the attendees. It really inspired me to apply for an IBM apprenticeship, and I ended up becoming really successful. I saw it as my foot in the door with like a first major tech company. So I pushed myself. I networked with every student club. I got involved with the Student Senate for California Community Colleges and the Chancellor's Office for California Community Colleges. I ended up getting to speak and was recognized by the VP of IBM, Z. Her name is Meredith Stowell. And I got the opportunity because I networked with over 2.3 million students across the state of California, and I gave presentations at different colleges and institutions about mainframe technology and IBM Z systems. So that really wouldn't have happened for me if it weren't for Peter's involvement and Master the Mainframe being facilitated at ACM Los Rios. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that leads to the exact. I'm extremely happy to hear that, because that's exactly what the whole goal of the ACM is really being able to connect students with industry professionals, getting them opportunities to get exposure, which potentially can turn into internships and full-time positions upon graduation and things like that. So to kind of hear that story was makes me pretty happy, because that was the goal, and that's continuously, I feel, this should be the goal as ACM, Los Rios ACM students continue on their path and they continue to get into the industry. Then they can become a solid alumni network that gives back to the Los Rios chapter, and really provides something like this, right? Just some inspiration and some guidance, and as well as some resources for Los Rios ACM students as they go through their journey. And so it's really cool to see that the journey that was started 3 years ago has had the impact that it had on your life so far, and then how you're returning that value back to the Los Rios students now, and it's continuing to grow. So I'd love to see it, and I think that's truly inspirational, and really hope that other students moving forward will continue to keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, because like when you first joined ACM, like you didn't really have much of an impression, but when you saw like a professional speaker at Intel, you said you felt like that was the place where you felt like ACM was like a home, right? So I think that's what it is. It's like this place where you can grow. I call them guilds, but they're just places for you to help each other. I think like computer science, often people have this impression of you being like a lonely coder and off in your own little world. But it's definitely a team sport, and I feel like it's creative sport, right? Art and technology definitely go hand in hand sometimes. So I think having that creative problem solving, having that interaction with your team, really fosters for even better code and better products, right? And Intel is certainly a results driven company, and I like that. So yeah, this is really cool. Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.